see. That's what you want to see, where Blank have some weakness that you can exploit. And for Yoshimoto now, we mentioned earlier, the dream is certainly there, and now the dream looks more alive than ever.
And it doesn't even matter how well Blank do on the rest of these maps. All the other teams are going to be pouring over that Numbani VOD to look at what went wrong, what they can exploit. The weakness has already been revealed, the chink in the armor. Blank, though, on the defense here, this is something different.
Yep, so we're going to see, and the different part is actually Tongue on the Torbjorn, so I don't see it.
You barely see it, you forgot the name.
Which is funny because I played a ton of Torb in Retribution, but anyway. Tongue on the Torbjorn here, that's the real change-up, but usually you would see him either on an Ana or something like on a Zen on the defense instead.
And they are set up in this kind of back corner here, but now Yoshimoto work kind of around the other side of that. They should have been able to dive in there. Unfortunately, Saint, though, got popped. Kind of hurts the dive aspect of that. But Yoshimoto are just looking to get onto the point.
Oh,
anyway.
that hurt.
Oh, losing AKTM. Yeah, very much hurts. And Yoshimoto are very much split here. Hopefully don't lose any more members on the retreat, but that did not go well.
And now the risky part, the really tricky part of playing Torb is finally over, and the part where it gets really crazy begins. And this is the part where a lot of armor gets flown out. Chuck One and Takura eat up and Huss, and you're kind of good to go. And for a team like Yoshimoto Encounт that really needs a lot of that straight DPS damage, guys like Bep that are doing damage per second, 1 bullet at a time, it really hurts to be on a character like Sombra playing against heavy armor.
And that's the thing, the extra armor really helps a lot. I mean, even in terms of having more mileage, more health bars, it makes you harder and harder to dive. And that's not even accounting for things like Molten Core or you up getting headshots. So Yoshimoto already on the dive, just kind of over as it begins, unfortunately.
And now, when Yoshimoto are going to start succeeding is when Blank start to use ultimates. So what you need to see is Yoshimoto force out Molten Cores, force out the Valk, force out the Riptire, and then come in with their own ultimates after those ultimates defensively have been used. But they can't do that if they keep losing members like Maffin, like AKTM, to solo kills coming out from Huss or Eat Up or anybody else. But that's the kind of pressure that Eat Up has on Blank right now. We're not going to see enough time for maybe Yoshimoto to come in for that Doom push.
Got to credit Hyman's getaway there, actually. I mean, they knew exactly where he was. He nearly didn't get out. That was pretty...
Oh, Huss?
Oh, Bep! Oh, no. Right as he was getting EMP as well. That's rough.
And now we wait longer. We wait even longer. We're under the 2-minute mark here. We haven't really seen Yoshimoto touch the point yet. And Numbani looks so good, but this is not Numbani. This is Blank finding their own. And, I mean, Blank might be able to find a lot more.
Guess where the hole is? AKTM dashes past that one, but he's still going to get caught out by the Riptire, unfortunately. Dashing through it only puts you closer to Huss. Turns the tire around, pops AKTM, and even more waiting.
It was almost a crazy sick play, though, because he dashed out of the way of the tire. Huss could have actually hit the tire too early, which would have missed AKTM, or AKTM could have just killed the tire because the tire was only on 11 HP. Anyway, though, EMP finally comes out.
Yep, but already Huss has got 2 kills. I mean, he had one just as the EMP was coming out in the first place. And by the way, the turret placement didn't get caught by that EMP, so with the Molten Core running, Tongue was still just kind of drilling away. It was a pretty cheap defense for Blank, all things considered.
But that's the strength of the positioning, right? Because the EMP will never hit the Molten Core or the turret if Tongue and the turret are out of the way. You have to either then put the EMP on either that combination or the rest of the members, and usually, in fact, pretty much every single time, you want to be putting it on every other member. In this case, because of the way Blank was uniquely defending, that means Tongue and the turret were always going to be safe.
There's the dive in from Mason straight into Primal Rage as well. They need to give themselves as much time as possible. They pop Tongue's turret. He's going to have a hard time setting that one back up in the chaos of the fight. Yoshimoto, though, they haven't quite got the kills through. They haven't quite got what they've needed. AKTM looking for an angle in with the Dragon Blade. They've caught Kura. They've committed all the ultimates. There's the angle he was looking for, but Riptire right on top of him, and he was only hacking away at Shrill. A little unfortunate for him. It's not enough, and Yoshimoto is still kind of struggling their way into this. They're finally getting the members low enough, though, to turn this one around at last. It took everything they had, but they finally started to work around what Blank were doing on the defense.
And this is where you can really credit the rest of the team as well, despite AKTM going down to the tire, which, by the way, at the end of the day, it's a 1-for-1 ultimate trade, Riptire for Dragon Blade, difference being AKTM actually dies, but the rest of Yoshimoto Encounт, first of all, Hyman killing the turret from Tongue, then forcing Tongue to the ground, and then Mason, the Primal Rage, forcing Trill onto the ground, splits that defense up so hard that Blank have to reconsolidate, they have to find their footing again, and while they're trying to find their footing, Yoshimoto pull the trigger, they get the kills.
And speaking of pulling the trigger, they are in a good position to do so once again, coming up onto this Transcendence. Also with this pulse bomb, a good pick from that can kind of seal the deal. Husk over onto the Sombra now. They catch AKTM, and that should just... Oh man, Mason as well. Yeah, Yoshimoto can't make that push happen, and that means Blank can start stabilizing.
We also need to see for Yoshimoto Encounter if they can make the McCree work again, and they've already decided they don't want to do that. It's going to be the Widowmaker instead. I guess for AKTM, he wants to challenge Eat You Up directly in the Widow duel, and we already know how good Eat Up is in those specific duels, so
Love it.
It's going to be a tough ask for AKTM, but if anyone on this team is going to do it, it's got to be him.
I mean, it has to be him as well, otherwise they will find themselves never quite capping out B. So, Duel of the Widows right now. This is intense.
But it's taking up too much time. Note that Yoshimoto did not get a huge amount coming into B.
Where is going to go? That does pull the Transcendence, sorry, not the Transcendence, the Self-Destruct out of Huwu. Also the Transcendence out of Bet, mind you, but the one of those unfortunately got nothing, and that was Huwu Self-Destruct. Looking to pop Saint, barely keeping the mech alive. That is some masterful work by the healers, and that keeps them alive in the fight as a whole. As Trill goes down, they are not quite closing out these kills here, Blake. Now Kura dropping. Yoshimoto about to cycle into some ultimates that they can use to turn this numbers advantage into a landslide victory in the fight as they continue to get the picks. Now popping Huwu's mech. AKTM does go down, but if that's all Blank get, it is just not enough. Huss as well going down means no real follow-up on that EMP. Mason able to pop a Primal Rage to keep in the fight, and as Blank flooding onto this one by one, not getting the kills, not getting the conversion. Yoshimoto still in control of the fight as the Transcendence runs out for Tongue. He's looking to go down. Oh, catches a headshot on Mappin, and they're going to stabilize off the back of that, could you believe, as Yoshimoto unfortunately spread just a touch too thinly. Also just shy of the second third there. Blank by the skin of their teeth will hold.
And this is where the ultimates from Blank have really come out, and it becomes really important. Trill the Primal Rage just in time to be able to stall out the point, but also significantly eat up killing AKTM, forcing AKTM to respawn even with the Soldier. Couldn't quite make it back to the point on time. Didn't see a Transcendence out of Beb either, so for Yoshimoto, just didn't have all their tools lined up at the same time. But you also did see the AKTM pressure as a Widowmaker onto the rest of Blank allowed Yoshimoto to originally even get onto the point.
And man, they were so close as well. They had that self-destruct from Saint. They had the Primal Rage from Mason. They had enough to just keep Blank zoned, keep them stuck in the base, get kills, keep them pressured. And Blank, wow, I mean, they barely pulled it out. Yeah, Mason dead early in that one. As Huss deep on the dive, just wastes time for Yoshimoto, while on the front side, they get dove and picked off. So Yoshimoto, again, just having to wait.
And having to wait is not ideal for them, because if you really look at the difference now, the kind of impact that Blank Esports had on point A, where they stalled out the camp for so long, forced Yoshimoto to lose so much of that time, now gets to be banked up on the B defense. We're less than 1 minute, in fact, less than 30 seconds. Usually, if the team caps A faster, we'd have at least 2, maybe 3 minutes left.
AKTM recognizing that the Widow is too slow, but unfortunately, I doubt he's getting an EMP in any hurry either. Arguably a similarly slow hero, but Mappin, Pulse Bomb wide, Transcendence already out from Bep as Huss looking to weave in on the back line here. Yoshimoto, the tanks are low, Saints out of the mech. Mason's now the one getting pressured. They've got the presence back on the point and do get Huwu conversion, but Huwu answers back in kind. No tank line for Yoshimoto means no presence on the point, means no second point. 63.6 is all Blank need to beat.
And so close to getting that second tick as well. You got to think it would have been much more workable for Yoshimoto Encounter had they gotten the second tick. But that being said, they never once again had a big enough fight to really threaten to cap out fully. And towards that end of the game, you sort of see as well, because they were starting to run out of time, very difficult to set up for another big push with a lot of ultimates. You need another couple of minutes to do that, because they had lost those couple of minutes on A. They didn't have it onto B, so the impact of not being able to cap out A is definitely very significant for a team like this, and suddenly Blank's win condition is very clear.
Yeah, to say the least, and that was rough as well on the whole for Yoshimoto. They nearly didn't break that point A defense at all. It kind of got past the worst of it after that initial push. That's kind of where the Tourbillon starts to hit its stride a bit, and Yoshimoto really took everything they had to finally kind of, crack it, to solve the Rubik's Cube, and then not able to crack B after that, unfortunately. So Blank do set themselves up here in a position to take this one. But it does actually have to be said that because they cracked point A, they did at least get if not those 2/3, then at least that 1/3. Yoshimoto can also just hold out Blank here, either on A or B altogether, and it wouldn't be the first time Blank have been full held on a point B.
And we can even go back to Numbani and kind of consider that to be, you know, a very translatable full hold. I mean, not fully capping out Numbani is very relatable to now not fully capping out Horizon potentially. 63.6 is still very defendable, just shy of 2 ticks. Most teams have also full held B without giving up 1 tick, so within the realm of possibility, you could also see YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT complete this map, but it is now very difficult. And for Blank, as previously mentioned, their win conditions clear. They got to get the 63.6.
And they've got the tools for it as well, looking to come straight out the gate on the Sombra. They're just looking to get that momentum with the EMP. Looking to get a good dive to cap point A, have the snowball into point B, and just get that 2/3 in one fell swoop. Yoshimoto, the pressure's going to be on them to not let that happen.
Blank are going to play this long kind of flank right now, just kind of waiting for Huss's cooldowns, or rather waiting for Huss to find something, pressure the point even.
Yeah, it's IU up, wrapping around the other side to try and draw Yoshimoto onto the point. That's when Blank pressed the go button. Trading 1-for-1, Tongue already down, but Hyamin as well, and AKTM and Co not quite getting the damage in, not getting the trades in. As a tick from IU up, because Yoshimoto, they had to scrap out in the open, they couldn't pull back to the point. Blank, it looked like they were going to get a little bit caught in rotation, but instead they went, okay, we'll fight here then. Took on Yoshimoto in the 5 versus 5 and absolutely slam dunked them.
Yoshimoto kind of made the cardinal sin there as well. They kind of made the mistake of addressing the point, but only half addressing, and then half addressing the rest of the 4 members from Blank. I mean, you got to commit to one or the other. If you want to commit to the Blank members, you should all commit to them as 6. Maybe give up a tick, but snowballing that first fight win should be more important.
Oh man, speaking of snowball, this is what Blank are looking to do right about now. Trill, though, is going to be the first casualty. And I think Blank have to recognize that even if they pop Saint here, it may be too little too late. Yoshimoto, though, they are under fire here. They may just have to start committing resources to make sure that Blank pull back, but as Blank continue to get pressured, they're actually willing to just wait it out, try and get Trill back in the mix, but IU up, down, AKTM, they do commit those resources. Gets one at least with the Dragon Blade before having to put it away. Blank are still losing members here, having committed ultimates, and the even trades, unfortunately, don't work in their favor.
Now this is going to be Yoshimoto once again, maybe even doing the impossible. It's Blank rolling through the early stage of the game. On Numbani, it was A and B. For Yoshimoto now, though, they have to defend this B point much like they did the C point in Numbani, which is to say, win fights that they are behind on, which is going to be this next fight coming up. Blank have a lot of resources, 5 ultimates in fact. It's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, Yoshimoto, I mean, they're at least coming up close to the self-destruct, which buys them time. In the right situation, can create space, maybe even get some kills, but Blank not going to waste any time. Speaking of, but Tongue's down. Yeah, EMP in. Looking to follow up between Huss and IU up, but they've only got Mason finally popping Hayam in, and that's the cost of not being able to use those ultimates. Saint, though, will be able to use his ultimate, will be able to self-destruct, doesn't get any trades back, though, and is just going to not even be able to remech, I don't think, and that means Blank on the point. Yoshimoto going to have to dive, barrel onto it. It's so nearly there, 60 flat. Last 0.2% away from it, but Yoshimoto, not quite enough boots on the ground there. Blank going to turn the series into a 2-1.
No mistakes coming out from Blank in that final push either, especially looking at Trill. Managing to find a kill into AKTM was so important. Didn't miss a single beat with his Primal Rage, locked AKTM up into the corner. If AKTM had managed to slide away back into spawn, reappear somewhere else, that might have been a little different. A lot of things could have been just a little bit different if Yoshimoto could have just denied value out of Blank, but at that sort of point, Blank were nearly expected to win. They had just so many advantages to work with.
And I mean, that was Blank's plan. That was Blank's plan from the start. There was bank up. A lot of angst. Yeah, angst words. Was to charge up the EMP and finally have that on that point B. And it took maybe a touch longer than they were expecting, but even so, I mean, that first fight loss wasn't even too devastating for them. There were some ultimates they could have conserved, but by staying in it, they did actually force Yoshimoto to use some crucial ultimates on their defense. And really, that was just Blank playing their win condition, executing it very, very nicely. Huss being very supportive. He's like, hey, buddy, you need some water?
Hey, I just only had 1 sip out of this, so it's still good.
It's still good, bro. But that is going to be another substitution now back the way of CKM in.
And I do want to speak to Blank's kind of ingenuity for that original attack onto A as well. The fact that, okay, put some members behind, then put a little bit of pressure onto the point, and then see how Yoshimoto respond. At worst, we maybe sneak out a couple of ticks here, at one tick at least, and that's exactly what happened. But usually only one of those things will happen. It's either going to be they lose the fight, but the backline members sneak out the ticks, or, you know, they don't get the ticks, but maybe their frontline members can make something happen. But they kind of made it work both ways because Yoshimoto responded so poorly. They couldn't quite decide how they wanted to respond because they were quite pressured for, I guess, time for decision making. Every second they wait, the point gets capped essentially. So Yoshimoto, under that time pressure, kind of made the worst choice, which is half commit to both and unfortunately lose. And
that's the thing. It's one of those situations where you almost need to instinctually at least all do the same thing, even if there is no particular call being made. Like, it's almost one of those situations where everyone, you know, everyone following the worst decision can sometimes be better than everyone just doing different things. Again, don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing.
And also then going on to B, I mean, at that point, you had Blank moving on with significant advantage. I mean, they had a lot of ults going in. They did lose that initial fight, which was unfortunate, but they didn't really commit too much in terms of resources. So because they saved most of the resources, and then on top of that, you had to see a couple of compositional changes, AKTM being the significant one, going from Genji onto the McCree. You're not seeing Yoshimoto get themselves ahead in the macro sort of way, which they significantly needed to do, like specifically even needed to do, to defend for 6 minutes. You have to win a lot of fights, including ones you're not expected to win.
Can you actually see out those sunglasses? Because if not, that's a real disadvantage.
Yeah.
You could take them off, I suppose, but if he's leaving them on where they're playing, it could be an issue.
But you look pretty cool. At least.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
This is still very winnable for Yoshimoto, purely because they're now at this point not having been 3-0'd already. They will need to go to a full 5, and that would mean they would need to change the tune of how Control did go for them on Nepal if they are able to make it all the way to Oasis. But first, they are going to have to make it past either Dorado or Junkertown, both of which are very strong maps for Blank, one has to consider.
By the way, a lot of the times when we've come back from the halfway break, sort of, we've seen teams, especially teams that were on the back foot in the first half, kind of bounce back quite strongly. And you got to say that, you know, Blank aren't necessarily on the back foot, but they did take a map loss. And because of that, them coming into Horizon Lunar Colony, that was far cleaner. They didn't make the same mistakes. They were much more coordinated. And for the most part, they were kind of outthinking and outmaneuvering Yoshimoto as well. So that's kind of the adaptation they had at halftime.
Yeah, and also, let's be clear, look, the map loss is rough for Blank. They're still not quite playing at their best right now. I'll be honest, if they were, we'd be seeing a pretty one-sided 4-0. That's not to say anything against Yoshimoto Encounт. That is just the caliber of Blank. They are the #1 finisher in this team, or sorry, in this group for a reason. But like I said, the weaknesses have already kind of been exposed there. Like even now, you're right, with the turnaround as it stood on Horizon Lunar Colony, there are things that all the other teams making it into playoffs are going to pour over. They're going to be looking at what went wrong. And now here's the thing. Yoshimoto, if they lose this, they unfortunately finish 5th. They don't quite make playoffs. Blank, they end up playing the 4th place team from the opposite group. If the 5th place team from their own group could take maps off them, you've got to consider the 4th place finisher from the other one could well do the same.
Yeah. But it is the bottom line that counts at the end of the day, and Blank, if they can still pull out this one, which they're expected to, going into Junkertown now, so the 3-1 will be what Blank is really looking for. But going to a map 5 would be pretty nuts for the Yoshimoto Encounт side of things. That's certainly what they're looking for now coming into this 4th map. Even so, though, again, bottom line is what really matters. If Blank win, they retain #1. They retain #1 regardless, but they retain #1 with a lot more confidence going to playoffs. And even then, going up against #4 team from the other side in Group A, as long as they can keep winning.
Yeah.
They might drop a map, but as long as they win the whole thing, they're good.
You can drop maps in every single series. If you win, it doesn't matter. Junkertown. Love the music for this. What do you call someone who plays a didgeridoo? Are they a didgeridoo or like a
didgeridooist?
A didgeridooist? Yeah, that's what I've always liked.
A didgeridooer.
Like I've always liked to think like if you play the trombone, you're a trombonist, because I think the other option is a bit weird. Like I met a guy. Yeah. I met a guy who was. You know what ham bone is?
No.
Well, he was a professional at that, and he was a ham bonist. That's how he introduced himself. Like, that's a really weird job to have. I was like, how do you...
Someone gets paid for that.
How do you do that professionally? Like, but he does. He gets paid to go and perform like any other musician would. Just, you know, ham bone.
And if you're a young player on an Overwatch League team or a Contenders team, your parents are probably thinking the same thing. How
Yeah, you're like, how do you get played for that? Go be a ham bonist. Sensible career choice.
It's one of the few times where that's the thing. So coming into by the way, we've seen Yoshimoto play a decent amount of pirate ship in the past. In fact, we've seen them take it very far. We've seen them take the pirate ship all the way into point C. So this is a team that you know, Junkertown's been a pretty good map for them.
Maffin setting up around the side here, not going to go straight for that payload. They recognize that Blank are kind of too ready for that, but they've scouted it out. Now they should be moving Maffin back in onto the payload. Get the pirate ship going. Get underway. Yo ho ho, as they say.
So far, Cart's reasonably uncontested rather, and for Blank Esports, giving a lot of space, but also waiting for that kill box. When they get there, that's when Blank Esports really need to make the defense count. And by the way, they're only running one healer, so Kura's got a lot of healing to do. And AK team is playing with the glasses.
Yeah, he's looking around the side. That's pretty nuts playing with the glasses, but he's peeking around the side, looking for something. Oh, Hayaman's going to be the first casualty there, unfortunately. Can't res himself. Muffin needs to get a lot of mileage right now out of this Bastion. They're not quite set up on the payload. Just slowly taking fire. Hayaman will be able to rejoin the fight, though, since Blank haven't quite got further kills. They are keeping everyone pressured with this Bastion, barely able to top himself off. No, they get him. Oh, that's a great snake in through with the halt into the mine out of CKM. And Hayaman, I mean, he's flown back in. He's looking for the res. Ooh, pulled out by the halt just as he was rezzing in. That's going to be the tire coming in behind them. Yoshimoto don't quite have enough legs left in this fight. And
they nearly did, though, because if it can just keep Maffin alive for a little bit longer, let his damage really sink into Blank, that would have been the difference. But the hold, and this time not even the hook, but the hold into concussive mine combo was exactly what Blank needed to shut that down. And with that, Maffin's having to swap onto a Tracer instead. In fact, most of Yoshimoto now onto a full dive, with the exception of AKTM still playing onto the counter-sniping Widowmaker. Bep's EMP's got to count.
Wrap it around the side. Oh, they've already popped Maffin, though. The CMP would have to do a heck of a lot. He probably has to hold it until Maffin is back. Otherwise, they just don't have the damage.
In fact, the AKTM should have maybe even held the Infrasight until Bep is ready to go with the EMP, because the Infrasight gives you a lot of information on how you want to be using the EMP. In fact, now, got caught by the halt. That really sucks because it cancelled his invis.
Yeah, translocated back as well to reset the cooldown on that so he can set himself back up. But when they know effectively he's still there, this time, though, going to be able to connect. Much better success. They need to get the follow-up, though, trying to drill down Huwu on the dive, but Blank weathering the storm. They're looking to bite back now. Huwu goes charging in. He hasn't quite got the kills through. AKCM does go down. Yoshimoto, they need to get more kills in this. They've finally got Trill, pressured out IDU up as well. Going to be able to follow up on him. That is at last the fight, but man, that was a struggle.
It's still a struggle currently, though, because Blank Esports not quite out of it yet, but with the kill into CKM denying the Riptide, they might just have what it takes to complete this A defense. Yoshimoto, though, still picking up kills regardless.
Yeah, Blank decided to just kind of stick in it till the last there. They want to draw as much time off the clock as they possibly can. They do so trading over for ult charge, but they're happy to make that trade for now, and will be able to set up on their defense as well on point B.
And a decent amount of ultimates coming online for Yoshimoto to make that B push really count. AKTM onto the Genji as well. But the tire from CKM has got to be the talking point here. That's the part that's going to really shut down Yoshimoto if they're not careful.
I only just realized how close Maffin's name is to Muffin.
Really? Because I've made that reference before.
Really? I just
reminded us
like
of muffins.
Someone who pronounces specific words very weirdly, ordering at a cafe. I want a muffin and a Bep. Anyway, that's the dive already being shut down by Blank on the defense there. And unfortunately, the ultimates they were coming up on not quite counting for much for Yoshimoto.
And we're not even really seeing the big tools being used for Blank either. So for Yoshimoto, they couldn't even force that out entirely. What you need to start seeing out of them, the decent news is in fact, there's actually not even that much cart push. I was almost thinking maybe if they at least got the cart to a decent position, but that not being the case really puts a stop onto Yoshimoto.
Now just Again, getting themselves... Oh,
Yep.
gee whiz. I didn't even see Bep. I don't know how 8 you up did. That was like the tiniest angle there. Straight in the head. That's rough, and that's just time lost for Yoshimoto.
And this is the kind of part that really hurts when if they lose AKTM as well, if they lose anybody else, I mean, this is where things start to really significantly snowball out of control. You're waiting for one member to respawn, and then you got to wait for another member.
Oh, Saint, he throws the self-destruct up into the space, catches Tongue in it, but that was a really awkward spot to be in. He trades his life for it. AKTM as well, down to the Riptide, but Blank, they are a little bit lean on members. Huwu's certainly not done here, though, and CKM is still alive, as is Kura, able to res 8 you up back into the mix as well, and may actually be able to stabilize out of this. There's a bit of cart movement here, but Yoshimoto, they're not exactly getting the runaway success they needed.
And the members staying alive, hiding inside that corridor as well, not being able to be aggressed upon by Yoshimoto Encounnt, keeping CKM alive most importantly, while the Riptide goes to get killed to AKTM, which kind of prevents him from charging the blade in time. Maybe he'll get it now.
There's the dive from Yoshimoto once again, but it's just uncoordinated. That was sloppy. They, you know, half were in the back line. The other half just didn't even bother going, and that half got picked out. Blank. That was kind of a free defense.
Less than 1 minute now remaining, but Yoshimoto have at least managed to save up ultimates. But what are they going to get out of these ultimates? It's still reasonably hard to play a blade into this composition. If they take too long, Tongue's about to get himself a Transcendence, and that's going to completely block out AKTM any chance of him getting a number of kills. That might be the only way Yoshimoto can win here, and they're about to not have it.
I mean, on top of that as well, they've got to get the momentum on their side. That's the other really key factor here for Yoshimoto. I mean, if you don't have it by now, they never really had it on point A either. Self-destruct in from Huwu just to displace the lot of them, and already they're kind of falling apart. AKTM did at least get one, but now he's just getting chased out of town by a glowing robot. Oh man, no humans allowed. And CKM, especially no half-halves. That's what Genji really is. And that's going to be the last push there for Yoshimoto. The Transcendence on the point from Bep just to buy time. Saint's already down. There's going to be a final Riptire out of CKM. He killed Bep as well with the last laugh, having just gone down to said member. Got nothing out of the Riptire, but it's not going to matter. Blank still are the presence on the point. They're still getting the kills through. Maffin going to be the last casualty, and that's going to be the point behold for Blank.
And this time around as well, not enough pressure on to eat you up. You did see on previous pushes that there was a decent amount of pressure coming out from the side of Blank against specifically Eat Up, but I mean, he got res by Kura, and then this time around didn't get touched at all, and you can see the results. I mean, he's doing the damage. He's one of the few Widowmakers that can just almost make this hero work in a number of situations, even when he is being pressured. The other 5 members of Blank are doing a very good job of kind of returning that damage onto the other side.
It's now a situation, I suppose, for old Yoshimoto. I mean, this is their last chance to make it in. And they've got to pull out a pretty wicked defense here on Junkertown. It's certainly doable, but it's going to have to be, you know, the caliber that they hit on point C of Nambani. And, I mean, unfortunately, that is now 2 maps ago. We have yet to see them pull that out a second time. And you don't want to say that it was just a flash in the pan, but certainly lightning has not struck twice. So, the question is, can they do it? And, I mean, we already know how strong Blank can be on that Junkertown offense, especially on that point A. Once they get going, they don't get stopped up easily.
We also saw Yoshimoto lose so much time on the A once again. This has been part of the struggle for them. I mean, you kind of saw it on Horizon Lunar Colony. They just couldn't quite get past that A defense. Finally getting past it, I mean, B somehow becomes even harder for them because they didn't get quite enough advantage even though they kept down A. So defending now, you got to say it's almost a similar story to what we saw in Horizon where, I mean, they got enough of a distance where they can still complete this defense, but for Blank, it just doesn't seem to phase them. They don't really, I mean, the win condition once again is very clear. They just got to push to that cart position, and it hasn't been difficult for them to do that.
Yoshimoto running essentially a dive comp here, at least the bones of one, so I mean, they're going to have to get proactive onto this card at some point. It's kind of a hard thing to do, so how far are they going to let it go? Probably up to the kill box, certainly, but once they've let it get that far, oh man, look at this Tongue sneaking around the side.
Oh, this will be a good nade.
It ought to be. Oh no, he's straight down to CKM. He did at least get the nade off, but unfortunately the follow-up not quite there. Where is the dive that Yoshimoto are kind of cooking up here? They're being too tentative, they're being too restrained, and now with Mason dead, they're not really going to get a chance to pull off that dive.
That being said, though, Blank are kind of walking backwards here. They're giving a lot of space to Yoshimoto, which they probably shouldn't be giving to Yoshimoto, who are waiting for respawners to come in. AKTM, if you can hit some real shots here, get some real kills, this is when that defense starts to really kick into gear.
Yeah, if Blank aren't careful, Mason's going to be able to come back to this team, and all that work they've done is going to be for naught as Maffin onto the back line, and this is where Yoshimoto are looking to press the go button, dive in onto the Blank.
Hook disconnected.
Yeah, hook unfortunately not quite getting all the way there for Tongue. That means Yoshimoto has still got a chance in this fight. Eat You Up does find a good shot, but Maffin's kind of wrapped around the other side. CKM with this Riptide Pulse Bomb just kind of into mid-air, unfortunately for Maffin, as they do lose Mason once again. And Yoshimoto, they finally press the trigger. They didn't get anything for it.
And the hard thing is, even if Maffin had killed Eat Up with or without the Pulse Bomb, Kora's right there with the Reds. In fact, he's there with the Valkyrie as well. Blank Esports, they're not stopping this push just yet. They're not stopping at any point.
Saint just kind of standing on the point just to buy time for his team to come back in, but we're going to get zoned away by the self-destructing Hubu, who's even going to get a kill to boot. And Yoshimoto, by doing this, have probably given up their ability to set up well on point B. This is the beginning of a snowball for Blank.
Which the difference is, Blank were able to get the setup onto B. They were able to get that nice defensive point on the high ground in the backstairs section. For Yoshimoto, the way they're respawning, the way they have to wait for members, and Blank should be looking to get early positioning here as well, because Tongue's already on the side, just FYI, looking for a couple of the respawn kills maybe. It's going to be hard for Yoshimoto.
And they know it. Yoshimoto, they can't spend too long on this, but they have to basically dive Blank. They kind of have to attack Blank, because Blank got to take the ground. They got to take the position. Now as they pull on back to the cart, this has got to be Yoshimoto going. Dive from Mason, stopped up short by the Halt, getting in with the Primal Rage now. CKM has already dropped AKTM. Now Saint Low has to commit a self-destruct. Mason is just shy of dead. And you can't say the same for these Blank tanks. They have stayed in the fight the whole way through. Tongue still doing damage on the back line of this. He doesn't have the mobility, but he'll still dive you as the Hog. That's going to be Blank slowly rolling it over the finish line. Going to complete the 3-1.
Very convincing plays from Blank on the 3 maps that they did when there was that one hiccup into the middle, and I think they'll be at least able to look over and then say, that was a fluke. Well, not a fluke really, but that was one mistake. That was one mistake they did not repeat for the rest of the series. And importantly, the following 2 maps, Horizon and Junkertown, were very much in their favor. Now, even the very small plays here were so significant. Times when Hyman, or rather not Hyman, but Mason as a tank, wanted to dive in. You had Trill coming out with a Halt, completely denying that jump pack, and then also the rest of the team just cleaning up all efforts from the Yoshimoto side towards that last moment, the last sort of section when Blank were about to finish the map. It did seem like, you know, Yoshimoto had really run out of options at that stage. They tried diving, they tried all sorts of things, nothing was really working out, and Blank expectedly do take the series.
And that's the thing, for that map win that they get, unfortunately, Yoshimoto weren't quite able to repeat that same success, get further map wins, etc., etc., and with that loss as well, Yoshimoto Encounter are officially mathematically eliminated from playoffs. Blank were already secure, not just in playoffs, but in their first place finish. You know, more wins is just kind of a good feeling for them as they collect a final handshake of the regular season, take a final bow off said regular season, and now the question is, will they get any more of them in playoffs? There were some real weaknesses exposed, but they do also have a week now to go back and address them.
And also for Yoshimoto Encounter, unfortunately, specifically for AKTM, not going to get the revenge story against the Australians this time around. I don't know, maybe World Cup 2018, maybe we'll see in August if AKTM rejoins the Japanese squad, who, by the way, is technically ranked higher than the Australian squad, at least in the national rankings of skill ratings. So that's the thing that they can work with right now. So if there is a revenge story for Japan, it's got to happen later down the line, and that's if they even make it to the same same region, same qualifier as Australia. But at least in Contenders Pacific, it's Blank coming out on top, taking the 5-0, a near perfect season. 17-3 though, I think you'll still take that.
And I will also say, for now, because Yoshimoto, this is a good way for them to end off the season, taking a map off the first place finisher. They will be going down back into trials, but I think there is more left in this team. I hope to see them again in Season 2.
And we'll have to see exactly how YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT. By the way, they do have one more match to go. That's going to happen on Saturday, but enough of Saturday. Let's talk a little bit more about Thursday. And that's going to be one more match coming up, Xavier versus Abang. Don't go anywhere.